Hey there, future civil servants. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling a really inspiring story about how a community in Odisha, India, took on the huge challenge of malnutrition.
It's a fascinating case study and
Yeah.
definitely packed with insights that are going to be super relevant for your UPSC prep,
Right.
especially for the mains exam.
Exactly. So we're focusing on Koraput.
Right. A region known for its beauty, but also, unfortunately, for some pretty alarming rates of undernutrition.
Yeah, the numbers are really striking.
They are. The National Family Health Survey paints a very stark picture,
Yeah.
with 43% of children under 5 stunted, 33% underweight, and over half of the women are anemic.
It's a stark reminder that sometimes government schemes just aren't enough, right,
Absolutely.
to solve these really complex problems.
They're multifaceted for sure.
Yeah. So this deep dive is based on a report from the Hindu, and it explores how this community found its own solution.
Yeah, and it's really about a community-based approach. The MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, you might know them as MSSRF, they came in with a really interesting model.
Okay, so what do?
Ye-
They didn't just tell people, hey, you're malnourished.
No, not at all.
Right.
They implemented something called the community-based nutrition literacy model.
Okay.
And it all started with empowering the community to understand the problem.
So they helped the villagers see it for themselves.
Exactly. They collected data, things like height and weight measurements, all that really basic stuff. And then they presented this information right back to the villagers.
And I'm guessing that sparked something.
Oh, absolutely. It created a sense of urgency, a real desire for change, but it came from within.
So it was bottom up,
Absolutely. Bottom-up change.
which for our UPSC folks is a key concept.
Oh, definitely. And this participatory approach, it was key throughout the entire process. For example, when it came to finding solutions, the community chose its own representatives to go to these special training programs.
It wasn't just like a random selection.
No, it was very deliberate.
Right.
They wanted to make sure they had men, women, people from different villages, different backgrounds, all represented.
That makes a lot of sense. So everyone had a voice.
Exactly. That way, the solutions they came up with during these trainings would actually be relevant to the entire community. It's about ownership, representation, sustainability, all rolled into one.
Those are some pretty valuable lessons for our future civil servants.
Absolutely.
Now, these training programs, they weren't just your typical workshops, right?
No, not at all.
They actually had folks live on site.
Yes, they had a residential component.
I imagine that created a unique bond
Oh, absolutely.
among the participants.
It was all very carefully designed. They wanted to build a sense of shared responsibility, break down those social barriers that you often find in rural communities.
Right. So it's almost like a...
Leveling the playing field,
Yeah.
creating a neutral space where people could learn from each other and really collaborate.
Which, when we think about social cohesion and conflict resolution, this is a big deal. I mean, it's not just about tackling malnutrition, but also strengthening the community itself.
You're exactly right. It's all interconnected.
And you know what? This is something our UPSC aspirants should be analyzing, those connections between social issues and development.
Absolutely. And the best part, this collaborative spirit, it didn't end with the training.
Oh, really? It went beyond that.
Villagers actually started working together, bringing in more nutritious crops. They were sharing farming techniques and even advocating for, government entitlements as a group.
So they recognized that they were stronger together.
Exactly. It's amazing, right?
It is. And, it just shows how important social capital is, those networks, those relationships within a community.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and that's something all our future civil servants should definitely keep in mind.
For sure.
It's all about leveraging that collective power, right?
Exactly. And they really understood that, especially when it came to working with the local government, like the panchayat.
So it wasn't just about internal changes. They were engaging with those external structures as well.
Absolutely. But what's really fascinating to me is how they used creativity to get their message across.
Oh. Tell me more about that.
Well, they actually wrote songs about nutrition. Can you believe it?
Wait, songs about nutrition.
Yeah. Imagine that.
That's amazing. It's like, what? Taking a policy issue and turning it into a musical.
It's brilliant, right?
It is. It's like something straight out of a UPSC case study on communication strategies.
Exactly. And they didn't just, sing these songs among themselves. They took them everywhere.
Oh, really? Like where?
Villages, markets, festivals, anywhere they could find an audience, basically.
So they were spreading the message far and wide.
Think about it. You're walking through the market, and suddenly you're hearing this catchy tune about eating your greens. It's got to have an impact, right?
Oh, absolutely. It makes it memorable. It makes it fun. It takes something that could be kind of preachy and turns it into something engaging.
Exactly. And all of these efforts, they actually started to show real results. Remember those home gardens we talked about?
Yeah, the ones that only had like 4 types of crops, what happened to those?
Well, get this. After the training programs and all the community mobilization, those gardens just blossomed. They expanded to include 9 different varieties of crops.
Wow, that's a big jump.
It is, right. And it wasn't just the home gardens. The same thing happened on larger farms. They went from growing like 2 or 3 types of crops to 5 or more.
So more diversity, both at home and in the fields.
Exactly. And what does that mean? More balanced and nutritious diets for everyone.
Exactly. It's not just about having enough food, it's about having the right kind of food.
You got it. Households started eating a much wider range of foods. Things like pulses, leafy greens, tubers, fruits, even poultry and fish.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's a huge win, right? And something that would definitely catch the eye of any UPSC examiner who's looking at, how to improve nutrition security.
Oh, for sure. It's a textbook example. But we can't forget, the role that women played in all of this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're often the ones responsible for, putting food on the table, making sure everyone's eating right.
Exactly. They're the heart of the family when it comes to nutrition. And the MSSRF program, they really understood that.
So they made sure to involve women from the start.
Absolutely. They empowered them to be agents of change, both within their families and in the community.
So they weren't just learning about nutrition themselves, they were also spreading that knowledge to others.
Precisely. And, there's one story in the report that really stuck with me. It's about a woman named Sonia from Malagad village.
What happened to Sanya?
Well, her daughter was anemic. And, after going through the program, Sonia, she made sure her daughter got a balanced diet, lots of leafy greens, fruits, pulses, eggs, everything she needed.
So she took what she learned and applied it directly to her family.
Exactly. And it made a real difference. Her daughter's health improved significantly.
So that's a powerful example. It shows how individual action can have a ripple effect, inspiring others to make similar changes.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just about individual families either. The program also had a big impact on community institutions, like the ICDS.
The Integrated Child Development Services, yeah, those are essential for, providing young children and mothers with nutrition, education, healthcare, all that good stuff.
Exactly. Really crucial programs. And the villagers, they became actively involved in monitoring these programs, making sure they were actually working as intended.
So it was about accountability, making sure those resources were actually reaching the people who needed them most.
Exactly. And sometimes it went beyond just monitoring.
Oh, really? What do you mean?
There's this great story about the village of Lecha. They didn't have an Anganwadi center.
Oh, wow. And those centers are so important, for providing things like supplementary nutrition, early childhood education, immunizations. It's a major setback if a community doesn't have one.
It is. And the women of Lecha, they knew this. So they rallied the whole community and demanded an Anganwadi center.
They just decided to take matters into their own hands.
They did. They even passed a resolution at the village level. And then their male counterparts, they took the lead in advocating with the local authorities.
So it was a real team effort.
Absolutely. And it worked. They actually got their Anganwadi center.
That's amazing. It shows what can happen when a community comes together and really fights for what they need.
Exactly. But it doesn't stop there. The villagers, they didn't just, sit back and relax once the center was approved.
It stayed involved.
They supervised the construction. They made sure it was inaugurated properly. It was their project, and they were going to see it through to the end.
That's fantastic. It shows real ownership and commitment.
It does, doesn't it? It's really inspiring. And, it makes me think about the role of traditional institutions as well.
Oh, right. Because it wasn't just about embracing modern solutions, was it?
No, not at all. They also looked to their own traditions for answers.
They revived things like grain banks, right?
Exactly. Those traditional grain banks, they acted like a safety net, especially during those lean times when the harvests weren't so good.
Yeah, it's like a traditional form of Social Security. Makes a lot of sense.
It does. And, for our UPSC folks, this is a great example of how those traditional systems can work alongside modern solutions.
So it's not always about, throwing out the old ways.
Right. It's about finding that balance, integrating the old with the new to create a more resilient system.
Exactly. And they didn't stop there. They use those gram sabas, those village council meetings, to really talk about long-term solutions.
Yeah, they talked about everything from sustainable farming practices to, strengthening those local food systems.
It was about planning for the future, but doing it in a way that involved everyone.
Exactly. It's that whole idea of participatory planning, where the community has a real say in shaping its own destiny.
And that's a big contrast to those top-down development models
Yeah.
where decisions are made, without really consulting the people they affect.
Exactly. And when people are involved in the decision making, when they feel like they have ownership, they're much more likely to support those initiatives to make sure they actually work.
It's about sustainability, right? Making sure those changes last.
Absolutely. But, the big question is, can this model be replicated? Can other communities facing similar challenges learn from Koraput's success?
It's a question we should all be asking,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Especially those future policymakers out there.
For sure. So, if we were to kind of boil it down, what were the key ingredients that made this model work? What can we learn from it?
Yeah, what were those core principles?
Well, first and foremost, it's about recognizing that community-driven development works. It's not about imposing solutions from the outside. It's about working with communities, empowering them to take charge.
It's that grassroots approach, right?
Exactly. It's about starting from the ground up, building on local knowledge and expertise.
And that's a key concept for anyone who wants to work in public service.
Absolutely. The second thing is, integrating nutrition literacy with sustainable agriculture. You can't just tell people what to eat. You got to give them the means to produce nutritious food themselves.
Right. It's about empowering them to create their own solution.
Exactly. And then finally, it's about recognizing the value of local knowledge and collective action. The community in Koraput, they didn't throw away their traditions. They embraced them, integrated them with modern practices.
So it's about finding that synergy, right? Combining the best of both worlds.
Exactly. And, for our UPSC aspirants out there, I think this is a really valuable case study.
Oh, absolutely. It's packed with insights that are relevant to so many different aspects of governance and development.
Definitely. So, dig into this model, explore its strengths and weaknesses, think critically about how it could be adapted to other contexts.
Exactly. And for everyone listening, we want to hear from you. Could this model work in your community? What challenges do you see? Let's keep this conversation going in the comments below.
And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe to The Deep Dive for more deep dives into these crucial topics.
A huge thank you to The Hindu for providing the source material for today's discussion.
And until next time, keep learning and stay curious.
We'll see you soon.